anybody can hear, please raise your hand. I just wanted to say a few things. Number one, congratulations to all who could find their ways here this morning. It was a real challenge. Second, I attended a meeting of Rodef Shalom earlier, Wednesday night last week, in which they presented all the security systems they have had to put into place since the awful event of 2018. I will be sending out something to everyone about that more, but one thing I want to tell you that we haven't been telling. If there should be a problem, you know, there are two blue things, one there and there, like emergency. You just pull down the handle and pull it up, and then you run out those wind doors, and it takes you right onto Fifth Avenue. You could also go this way, and a little to the right across the hall is another exit. Of course, the guy at the receptionist desk, whose name is Darren, he's actually the head security guy, which I didn't know before. So he would take care of everything. Regarding next year, we will have a mix of home and Rodef meetings. 4 home, 3 Rodef Shalom, but you'll hear more about that later. Finally, Amaury Morales is going to be a co-chair with me of piano division for next season, and he has just a few things to say, then we'll be ready to start.
Thanks, Jennifer. Good morning, everyone. As Jennifer said, we will be teaming up and dealing with the piano division this upcoming year. And as she also mentioned, we have the meeting in September at Connie's house, and we're looking for program organizers. So if you're interested, or you know somebody, or you want to vouch for somebody, let me know, and I can email them and see if we can arrange something so that we can have a wonderful meeting in September. That's all I have to say. I think we're ready now for our first group.
In September, I do have 2 pianists, so if anybody has 2 piano repertoire, that's a good time to try that.
It's a great tip. Thank you.
Good morning. We're just going to start off and follow the program. And the first piece is a piano quintet by Dohnányi. This is his Opus 1, so I believe he was either 17 or 19 years old when he wrote this. It's a beautiful piece. We're playing the 3rd movement. And then following the quintet, we'll have a duet. We're going to have little furniture moving in between things. We'll move the chairs away for the duet, and then we'll take a short break to move the piano forward a little bit for all the solos. Okay? Oh, this is my first time using technology. I'm going to try to use an iPad and a foot pedal. So forgive me, sometimes if I'm nervous, sometimes I hit the foot pedal too hard and it turns 2 pages, which is disaster. So I hope that won't happen. This is an experiment.
I thought I might just say a brief word about this particular Scarlatti that I chose to play today. It really is one of my favorites, and I love it for its clean lines and the contrapuntal voices and the immense expressive quality of it. So it's a little different from what we might normally think of as a Scarlatti sonata. So this is K69 in F minor.
first that it says on the program. I'm doing the arietta first and then nocturno.
Nikolai Lopatnikov might be familiar to those of you in Pittsburgh. He was born in 1903 in Reval, Estonia, which is now Tallinn. And he led a very peripatetic career. He was a distinguished composer and pianist all throughout Central Europe in the 1920s and 1930s. He touched base with Hindemith, with all of the shining lights of the avant-garde in Central Europe in 1920s and 30s. In 1939, to escape Hitler, he first went to London and then came to the United States, where he eventually became professor of music at then Carnegie Tech, and where he worked from 1945 or 46 to his retirement in 1973, and then he passed away, unfortunately, in 1976. Lopatnikov wrote in a very neoclassical style with a lot of chromaticism. There's kind of a lot of Bartók inflection. This particular piece, the Variations, was written in 1933, the year of Hitler's ascent to power, and it was written in Finland. His first wife, who ultimately died, her family had an estate in Finland, and they had first fled there, and he got a work permit to stay there for a while. So the reviewer said this piece springs directly from the Russian soil, and perhaps it's sort of a longing for his homeland while he was in exile.
Good morning. I don't know if we have guests here who are not pianists, but I decided to say just a few words about Robert Schumann and Clara Wieck Schumann, in case there's any uncertainty. The organization of this program is based on a narrative, the musical and biographical relationship between Robert and Clara Schumann. Robert was a piano student of Friedrich Wieck, and that's W-I-E-C-K, in Leipzig, Germany, in the 1830s. And his attraction to Wieck's young daughter, Clara was a precociously gifted pianist and budding composer, 9 years younger than Robert, who was also an aspiring composer. When Robert, for a variety of reasons, was unable to continue his plan to become a concert pianist, his attraction to Clara became more focused and intense, much to the concern and disapproval of Herr Wieck, her father, who did all he could to abort it, unsuccessfully. From the early 1830s to Robert and Clara's marriage in 1840, there was an outpouring of music and correspondence between the two lovers. Some of Robert's compositions were inspired by or dedicated to Clara. An example is the Romance in F-sharp major from a set of 3 romances written between 1839 and 1840. They were originally dedicated to a nobleman, but for her wedding present in 1840, Clara asked Robert to withdraw that dedication and instead rededicate it to her. It was her favorite of all of Robert's compositions, and she asked that it be played while she was on her deathbed. The composition is marked Einfach in German, which means simple, but as I learned from my teacher's teacher, Arthur Schnabel, and it was reiterated by Alfred Brendel, Einfach is simple, but not simple-minded. We often hear a variety of performances of this piece in a variety of tempi, many of which are hopelessly slow. I chose to bring it closer to Clara's instructions in her edition. I have chosen Clara's Mazurka, one of 6 pieces in the Soirée Musicale, written between 1835 and 1836. I believe that in this brief 2 to 3 minute piece, Clara has clearly projected her personality as a vivacious, capricious young woman of considerable creative and pianistic gifts. Furthermore, the opening rhythmic figure, and I'll show you this, serves as the main motif for Robert Schumann's Davidbündler-Tänze, which are the last pieces on the program this morning. I will tell you a little more about that in a minute. The Mazurka is a very unusual piece filled with sudden changes in character, changes in dynamics, changes in articulation, and the variants are especially interesting and hard to remember. So it's more or less a first performance of the piece for me, and I hope you enjoy it. Now to the Davidbündler-Tänze, and that really means dances of the League of David. And something that one has to know in studying Schumann is that he was quite literarily oriented. Typical of many young men who were in the arts in the 19th century. But he was particularly fond of 2 authors, 2 novelists, Jean-Paul Richter and E.T.A. Hoffmann. Richter's work, which is called Flegeljahre, and various translations, one of which is The Awkward Years, and another, Wild Oats. So this will give you some idea of what Jean-Paul was all about and what attracted Robert to his writings, as a matter of fact. But Flegeljahre is a 2-volume work which is hopelessly complicated. It was in part commentary on the artistic times and political times of his life, as well as observations on musical compositions, some of which he championed, others of which he did not. But the centerpiece of the novel is a set of twins, and their names are Walt and Ult. And if you are fans of Saturday Night Live, as I, you may remember the comedy of the two twins dressed in barrel-type costumes. I think they were directly derived from Walt and Wult in Flegeljahre. Flegeljahre also concludes with a masked ball, which served as the inspiration for Papillon of Schubert and also Carnaval. Another thing that impressed Schumann about that and the set of twins is that they were of divergent personalities, one of which was passive and the other of which was quite overt. And so as we play and listen to these works in the early cycles, in the 1830s of Schumann, we note a preoccupation with polarity, contrasts in mood and character. And eventually it seems that Robert identified with them as he dealt with his own bipolar psychosis. It's a very, very interesting psychological study. And so in the Papillon, we have a variety of characters at a masked ball, but no real identification. When I play the Papillon, I sometimes attribute my impersonation or my concept of the impersonation of these various movements. In Carnaval, we get much more specific instructions. And another of Robert's penchants was the Italian street comedy, Commedia dell'arte, in which there are any number of characters which are buffoons of contemporary society. And so in Carnaval, we have Pantalon, we have Pierrot, we have Colombine. These are all Commedia dell'arte derivations. And so as we think of these particular movements in Davidsbündlertänze, we can, in the first place, observe the polarity between passive and aggressive. Schumann chose only to give tempo markings or instructions for them. And I have translated the German into the Italian so that it might be more understandable to you. So the relationship between Clara's mazurkas and the motif there and Davidsbündlertänze in an extension is that the whole set of 18 pieces in Davidsbündlertänze constitutes a kind of set of variations. These pieces, the early cycles, are often referred to as variation sets. The most conspicuous relationship to the motif is an ascending line. And so whether it's in melody or whether it's in accompaniment, we see this constant continuity of the ascending motif. Bum, ba, ba, dum, bum, ba, ba, dum. I hope that will help you a little bit. The piece ends in what we have come to know as a transcendental ending. It derives from the last sonatas of Beethoven, Opus 109, 111, and it's somewhat anticlimactic. I read in a letter from Robert to Clara after the Kreisleriana had not had much success in the public, mainly because it had a very quiet transcendental ending. So Robert said to Clara, why don't you write something or at least play something loud so that the audience has a sense of conclusion? Well, I'm not going to do that for you today. I'm going to leave you floating on a transcendental cloud. I do want to say something about two aspects. The second piece is called, in German, Innig, and the Italian translation, con intissimo sentimento. Unique is almost inexpressible. The closest word that I could come up with in English is ineffable. It's almost inexpressible. The other thing that I want to mention, which has nothing to do with the characters, is a rhythmic procedure which Schumann was very fond of. And it could be one of the reasons that his music was puzzling to the public and not really well received to begin with. But we in music theory use the term hemiola, in which, in simple terms, we have a 2 against 3. And it creates a very interesting tension. I'll just show you. The second piece is this. Balladenmäßig, or in the style of the ballad, a very tempestuous piece, we have a more striking example. Very interesting. In the first piece, while we don't have a definite, consistent mood, you find the moods falling all over each other, beginning with aggressive and then passive and then aggressive and then passive. It becomes really a quite turbulent piece. Later on, the moods are fairly consistent from beginning to end.
Thank